I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling. But out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, welcome to Outside the Therapy Room. Bethany is back.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
And we also have Alicia. This is your first time on the podcast.
It is. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
This is a very exciting topic, and I'm so happy to have both of you here because in the office, you guys are my go-to people on reality TV. You guys are always talking about it, and obviously our topic today is reality TV and the impacts it has on our mental health. So,
I love it.
what reality shows have you guys been watching?
Alicia, you go first.
Oh, goodness. I feel like I watch a lot of reality TV.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys have Prime Video, but I have the Hey You subscription. So that just I feel like feeds into my reality TV addiction. But I'd say right now, some of the ones that I'm watching are Southern Hospitality, Southern Charm, Real Housewives of New York City. That's one I like. I would say that those are probably the main ones right now. Yeah.
I love it. We're like right on the same wavelength.
I know. That's why I'm so excited.
I'm so excited because there's kind of like the Bravo Hey You universe, and then there's like the Bachelor or like Netflix and you know that. So like, yay, you're on my like Bravo area as well. So mine, okay, New York is great. Real Housewives of New York is great. Your next one has to be Salt Lake City.
Oh, yes. I'm watching that as well.
Okay, good. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is my favorite ever.
Yeah.
So I'm up to date on that, which means I just watched the finale. So I'm going to have to, separate myself from that for a hot minute. Below Deck, all the seasons, all the flavors of Below Deck. Vanderpump Rules. And then I'm also on Southern Hospitality because the new season is out. So that one's really cool. Yvonne, since you don't watch it, right? Okay,
No,
Southern Hospitality is like similar to Vanderpump Rules, where it's like they follow people that work. In this one, it's like a nightclub.
Oh.
They work at the nightclub, and it kind of is the inner workings of like that and like their dating lives, but also their lives at work, like being caught being unprofessional or like drinking and that kind of thing. And then that's very similar to Vanderpump Rules, which is at a restaurant, which I also love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the only reality TV that I watch, which isn't even reality TV, it's like a show, like a game thing, is a competition, is like Dancing with the Stars.
I think
Which
that
I
counts.
love. But that's how I know some characters because some of them are from these shows. Mm-hmm. But you guys have such passion talking about this. I remember I came into the office and I think it was Anna, our old intern, and you and Alex were talking about Love is Blind because a big, huge thing happened with the Netflix live of Love is Blind.
I think that was in my interview.
Oh, maybe.
And I was like, did I just accidentally spin my whole interview into reality TV? Are they ever going to want to talk to me again? And then they hired me.
But what is so enjoyable about reality TV for you guys? Like, what is the thing that kind of draws you to it?
Alicia, you go first.
I think, working in this field, I think sometimes it's nice to just kind of come home and kind of decompress. And I feel like that is an easy way to do it. And I think even when I remember being in grad school, I think that's kind of when a lot of this started. And it was kind of during COVID too. So it was kind of like, what's something that I can kind of put on that has a ton of seasons? And of course, reality TV has like a million seasons if you watch like Housewives of like Beverly Hills or whatever, right? So yeah, I don't know. And I feel like there's a lot of drama, but then also you kind of see a lot of women making a lot of connections and friendship. So it's kind of although sometimes I think reality TV is known for the drama, it is also really cool to like see all these different personalities and different parts of the world, and like seeing like culture and like how it might be different from like, say, I don't know, the area we, live in, or like even like Toronto, right? Like, because a lot of them are held in big cities. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of like an easy way, yeah, to decompress, um, and you kind of feel like these people, and like on in a non-weird way, right? Like you kind of like feel like you like will turn off an episode and you're like, oh, I really didn't like that Dorinda did that. But it's like
Dorinda is often the source of conflict.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that is kind of my answer. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you really named it that I actually didn't think about, is just the abundance of it. There's so much. So I find I get really into reality TV shows, and then there's comfort in knowing there's another season, there's another 10 seasons, or like there's a similar show over here. And so I find like I do a lot of rewatching as well, but I find there's such an abundance that I like always have my next show. Whereas before I was watching reality TV, it would be like the kind of mini series things on Netflix, and once they're done, it felt kind of done. Like there wasn't the automatic next thing.
Or the spin-offs that tend to
Yeah, exactly. I also I watch a lot of reality TV, and I think the reason I watch a lot of it is because it's now just transformed into my background noise. Like, I find with reality TV, I can zone out for like 10 minutes, but not feel like I need to go back and really, really pay attention. And I think being in this field, like, my main priority at work is my attention. Being able to like listen, hear the emotion behind things, like really be here. Whereas reality TV for me is that escape, because I do know what's going on, even if I don't listen to the whole conversation, or if I don't, it's kind of a quiet moment, and then I zone in because they're screaming and throwing wine glasses at each other. Like, now I'm back, right? So I do a lot of crafting. I eat while I watch shows. I'm on my phone while I watch shows. So since I don't have to give it my undivided attention, I find it like a really good break for my brain to be distracted but able to do something too, where I don't get mad at myself for like not paying attention.
It sounds like it's also comforting because you like both of you said, right, you know the characters, they feel like they're your friends, and so even just having it as background noise, just like any comforting show. For me, my comfort show is Friends. I know it off by heart. And so these characters, that maybe like the drama or the conflict kind of follows a pattern. And so I can hear kind of like that comfort in it. And also we talked about it in like our very first episode with Destiny, where we talked about like safe places to experience fear and anxiety, and like maybe some of these shows bring up some of that, because a lot of them, there's a lot of conflict in them, but because it's in a safe space, it's not your conflict, you're watching conflict happen, and that like things are going to be as okay as they can be by the end of the episode. Like, I can imagine that just being like a comforting place for you to be in. Again, like your familiarity with the people, but also the emotions that might come up from the show.
Yeah, I think there's definitely moments too. I find with myself, like, it's in particular when I'm paying more attention, where I do get kind of roped into the conflict, and I can feel in my body that I'm anxious, where I literally have to pause and be like, wait a second. Is this anxiety from my life or my experience? And I kind of go through in my head just like what feels anxiety inducing, and then I'm like, wait a sec, no, it's because I've been watching these women scream at each other for an hour. So then that's when I know I need to take a break, right? But at the same time, like, I think it is really interesting to kind of experience maybe different conflicts that I don't see on a daily basis. Part of it too, especially with like housewives, they're living very privileged lives, and the lives are on TV, and so they have this added drama, knowing that like they're kind of playing it up given the environment. And so to me it's not quite the same as like when I see issues in like my life or issues in my client's life, because there's that separation of like, they have incredible privilege. They have incredible supports on their side as well.
Right.
So I can see this as like falling into the box of like fun, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Alicia, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think it almost reminds me of, I'm not sure if you watch it, but the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of like, it goes through like, because I think that there's been like a trend, right? Like, I think Kyle Richards was talking about it, if I'm correct, but basically how like Housewives kind of started off with just like, kind of like, I don't want to say ordinary, but like a different set of like women that maybe had, still had privileges, but that is kind of now transformed into like these business women that are now like, really made it on their own and like have all these really neat experiences. Like I think about the latest season of Beverly Hills, and there's one woman specifically who was like the CEO of Netflix, right? So
yeah, Bose. Is it Bose?
Yeah, and she just like is so lovely, and it's just, I don't know, I guess it's just really cool, and it's really cool to just like see the experiences of these women, right? And it's like something you wouldn't necessarily have the privilege to otherwise, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think that's true because it's also filmed over such a long period of time, right? Like, I didn't start watching Beverly Hills when it came out, because when it came out, it was what, like I don't know, like 2005, maybe 2008. Yeah. So I started it in like maybe like 2022. So seeing the progression of someone go through so much, like Kyle Richards is a great example. She started on the show with many young kids, and all of them now, except for one, I think, are like in university, done university, working jobs. Like, so I think that's kind of the benefit, and the way I can connect that to therapy is we might see a client for a 6-month period or even 2 years or like once. And sometimes we don't get the answers to what happens next.
Yeah.
And so I like maybe that reality TV offers the what happens next, because I've seen someone grow through like a 20-year period. And the change that's happened, and the emotional growth, and the like fashion growth, like it covers everything. Like Vanderpump Rules, for example, they started as people working in a restaurant, like minimum wage jobs, obviously with tips, but like they were working in a restaurant. Now Ariana Madix was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
Like,
and then she was on Broadway.
A couple of them have written books. Like Stassi Schroeder has written a couple books, and I love her. And now they're kind of molding into like influencers, celebrities, like watching the original seasons where the restaurant would be like normal busy. Now you watch it and you get the occasional glimpse of the amount of people standing outside because they're filming the show.
Right.
It's so different through time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's quite interesting to see growth in that way, because while I might be able to binge it in like a 2-month period, this is someone's like 20 years of life.
Yeah. Which I imagine also gives like a sense of ownership to these people, because you do, as a fan, you're watching them and you're seeing them grow, and it's like, I know this person. I, maybe don't agree with the decision they made here, or I don't like how this person, like you get defensive on their behalf, but you don't know them, which is like the weird, funny part of it. But how do you think reality TV impacts our mental health? Either, benefits our mental health, or how does it impact it that maybe can be damaging or hurts our mental health?
There's probably something to be said about the like parasocial relationships that we're making with people. I think, and that kind of goes to a bigger thing too. You see that like with celebrities, or like Taylor Swift is a good example of that, where we take ownership of them. Yeah. And I think that can be difficult in terms of mental health of we don't know these people. We get a glimpse. We think we know them. Reality TV is heavily produced. It encourages the engagement in drama, and exposing secrets and being brutally honest and saying things that we would never say to people face to face. That I think it can kind of morph our beliefs or even our behaviors towards other people, because we call it reality TV, but it's in many ways not.
Yeah.
I might have to think about this one.
Yeah.
Alicia, take over.
I feel like it's like a multifaceted question, right? Because it's like, I hear exactly what you're saying. Like it's not reality in a lot of ways, right? Even the experiences like of these women, or like if you think about Vanderpump Rules, right? Like they are very privileged, and I wouldn't say that these are the experiences of, let's say, the average human being, right? Which is okay, and I think that's what the draw is for a lot of us, to kind of see the lives of Stassi Schroeder as an example, right? Who is this like young and very cool now mom, right? Who is kind of like doing all these things and really successful. I think, however, at the same time, right, we kind of, like you said, like I think, I guess to, contradict my first point around like, it's a way for me to kind of turn my brain off, right? Or like be able to like, yeah, I guess decompress in a lot of ways. I think that there is that other side to it where, there's a ton of conflict that we're watching, right? And there is a ton of, in some circumstances, a lot of trauma that these people will go through, right? On live television, right? So I think that there's that piece to it as well. And it kind of like, even as we're talking about it, it reminds me of Love is Blind in a lot of ways. Like I think there's been quite a few lawsuits that have come out of that show. Because people's mental health were not taken care of, and their their wellness in general. Like I don't know the exact stats or information regarding it, but I think like they were complaining that they weren't given like proper meals, and like a lot
I've heard
of
that
things
too.
were taken care of, right? So I think that is the side that we don't always see. And I think also, I think about The Bachelor, right? And I think that was kind of like my earliest form of like kind of going into reality TV and kind of watching, and being like with my, friends on a Monday night, and, having like this experience where it was, so much fun, and we would get, takeout and hang out. But on the other side of that, I think when we started out, we didn't necessarily know the effects of reality TV as well, because I know that there's a lot of like online hate that a lot of these people get. And I think that's also another part of it. I guess I'm more so talking about the mental health of these, about the people that are on these shows. However, that would also impact the viewer as well, right?
Yeah, I think it applies for sure, because I think even looking back on reality TV, like I go to like, I don't know if you watched America's Next Top Model.
I used to watch
I was watching America's Next Top Model when I must have been like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I'm seeing a lot of clips here and there now on TikTok of how awful it was. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I watched that and thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And now I watch it and I'm like, because times have really changed. Like that show really pushed this like very skinny image. It was calling women that were like a size 6 plus size models. And like it was looking at bodies in like a really terrifying way, that I would say nowadays.
Yeah.
But that they would go through, the makeovers and kind of like, this is what you need to be like this ultimate model. But they were like getting their hair chopped off just for like effect, and like bawling their eyes out. And
I remember one girl got her gap like extended.
Yeah. Yes, the gap in her teeth extended. And it's like, it kind of like, I almost go to like the Hunger Games of like this exposure to conflict and trauma for enjoyment.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin reality TV for myself, but it is something that we should consider, right?
But I think it's also having that boundary, knowing that like, okay, that is TV. I know it's highly scripted. I know it's highly produced. like, you know, there's
and I can hope that
all of
that these people have support.
Yes, and you can be hopeful of that and still separate it from your own life, because like America's Next Top Model, there's a lot of body image things that could come up for yourself as a viewer, right? Yes. And obviously that was a very different time, but even as Alicia was saying, like with the Bachelor, Bachelorette, and I'm gonna look at the mental health of these people for a second, the contestants, but they're being put in this position of competition for love. And that can be so hard, because that would never happen in the real world. Yeah. You wouldn't date 20 people and slowly, you know, not give them a rose until you have the last two people. Like, that's not a realistic way that, you know, a relationship can exist. There's obviously been some very successful relationships from those kinds of shows, but I'm just imagining like how that then impacts somebody. And then even, I know, what's her name? Jen Tran from the latest Bachelor. She was on Dancing with the Stars. That's the only reason why I know her. Yeah. But she like got out of like after the final rose where they broke up and went straight to the airport and was on Dancing with the Stars, and there was so much emotions that had happened in that, and she says that Dancing with the Stars has helped her kind of heal that for herself. But that's a huge, you're seeing the most vulnerable moment of a person played out on TV, and I can't even imagine how that impacts their mental health, because we don't like that, but as viewers we can judge a lot on that, right? We can judge how someone's behaving, how they're maybe not understanding things properly, or sometimes I've even seen it on social media comments, people judging them, being like, well, you should feel that way, you knew what to expect, they were filming your relationship. Like, like you were kind of asking for it. And it's like, I never like the statement of people asking for it. I think, yes, there's a certain kind of contract of like, this is what reality TV is. Yeah. But then there's that, while it's happening, crossing boundaries, things being pushed, things being recorded that should have been private. Yeah, like they're so human. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the lack of separation that tends to happen on the production level of like people's real lives, like Love is Blind, I heard like needing food, or like Bachelor, that first episode they do, the girls that don't get roses within that first ceremony, they're leaving at like 5 a.m. So they were up all night. Yeah. Like it's light outside when they're leaving. So they must be exhausted. They were like maybe drinking like 3 hours ago, but like probably have a hangover headache by now. Like it's, and then being recorded in that moment, like I would never be able to apply that to my own life. Like no, don't do that to me. Yeah, we kind of went into talking about the mental health of that, but I think it applies and impacts the viewer too. Plus, it could, coming back to the viewer, does it desensitize us to these issues? I think is a worry. I think it's important for viewers to maintain that separation. Yeah. This is a show. It's pushed in this way. We're seeing, you know, an hour's worth of content from a 48-hour filming period. Right. So I think it's about creating that separation, because otherwise, like, you know, watching someone like get divorced on TV and being like, well, there was issues in the relationship. You would never say that to a friend. Like it is this kind of very desensitized view because it's so condensed. Yeah. So I guess we talked a little bit about like the harm of it. Have you ever had like a session with maybe a couple or an individual client, and there's so much conflict, and then you end up leaving and you like pick a fight with your partner, but it's like they talk about it in school, right? And that's like the transference, countertransference. But I think the same thing can sometimes happen with these shows where we see a lot of this conflict that happens, and then when we shut off the show, we've absorbed some of that conflict, and so then we might pick a fight with a friend or with our partner or with whoever's in that area, and we're just like so heightened with this conflict, we just saw that now it's like, has that ever happened? For me, it happens in a different way. So my partner and I will both watch a show together. He got very into Salt Lake City, which I love. Yeah. And we almost have conflict in terms of like our opinions while it's happening. Yeah. Where
I kind of see it. I'm able to kind of create the separation of real life to reality. And I find when I watch reality TV, like I will kind of accept and embrace someone's like bad behavior because I like them, or like I really like their outfit.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, yeah, but she can kind of do no wrong. Like I'm like that with Stassi Schroeder on Vanderpump Rules. Like she does make mistakes. She is sometimes not very nice, but I just because I kind of liked her and I thought she was hilarious, I would like stand by bad behavior from her. Whereas like my partner was very good about like, no, like that's so rude and inappropriate. And I'm like, yes, but it's Stassi. So that's where I've seen some. It's not like it doesn't translate into our relationship. Like we're able to kind of hold space for that conflict of like opinions and like laugh about it because it's like, no, this is not how I really feel about people. This is how I feel about Stassi Schroeder, who I love. Not sponsored. I wish.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so unless I'm maybe I need to like bring more awareness to it, but I would say one thing I have noticed is I think that again, like there's such an extravagance, right, to a lot of these shows, right? I think it's hard to kind of like remind yourself like this is not, the average person's reality. No, this is kind of like let's say like the top 1% when we think about that, right? Like a lot of these people are like millionaires and billionaires, right? So I think that there's moments on the show where it's kind of like, oh, like you kind of compare your life and your lifestyle to a lot of these people, right? And I think that it's more so, yeah, I would say the comparison thing can be difficult for me personally. Just
Yeah.
right? Like even the clothing and the brand names and that they can go shopping and just like drop hundreds and hundreds of dollars and like not even, bat an eye, right?
Yes.
I think that can be sometimes hard to watch a little bit, right? Where it's kind of like, okay, like I don't know. It can be hard in the sense of like just watching how easy and like yeah, I would say easy they are able to do a lot of these things. Or no, even when there's moments of them maybe complaining about how expensive things are. Like I know Erica Jane, if you know, from Beverly Hills, right? Like she has this beautiful house in LA, but she is like frequently kind of talking negatively about it. Right. And it's
Yes.
like a house that I would say it's like an average, would you say an average size house maybe?
In Los Angeles, yes. Yeah. But that it's not compared to like the women that live in the hills. Like if you think of like Lisa Vanderpump.
Right. Yes.
It's like a castle, like it's huge. So yes, like compared to her friends, she's like experiencing or like talking about the small house, the like kitschy, like this is the house that I like kind of had to run to post divorce, and I think that's like really valid, but also like it's beautiful and it's not small.
I imagine it would still be quite expensive, right?
Yeah, it's kind of stunning actually.
So I think like moments like that where I'm just like, ugh, that kind of, as young people say, that kind of gives me the ick. You know what I mean? So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And I think that in those moments it's kind of hard to watch, right? So I would say that's something that I have noticed that I definitely struggle with.
Yeah, like the gap in the privilege sometimes. I actually really got that way with Selling Sunset. Like I would sometimes have the mentality of like, yeah, one day I could do that. One day I could have this like, $10 million house on the hills. And I mean, Los Angeles is really going through it right now too. So I think that's the unfortunate part is like privilege doesn't trump everything. Yeah. And then I have the reflection of like, that doesn't feel realistic. And so I think reality TV can bring out this like, well, if this is the goal, like this is the goal of these women, this is the goal of people on it, they've just purchased their beach house and it's beautiful and it's such an accomplishment. And it's like, I, as a 20-something in Ontario with rent prices, with mortgages, am very unlikely to get there. And so sometimes it can be kind of defeating, like when you're so entranced by that world, it's like, yeah, I could do that, and then you kind of separate, and it's like, it's not about like limiting my beliefs and my dreams, but also like the reality of like, I probably won't get there. And that's not reflective of like the average life, the real life experience. I have a funny story too about like kind of absorbing reality TV. So 2020, I was looking for jobs and having a really hard time, and I was watching Jersey Shore every day, all day. I had a phone interview, and I had realized I had been talking in a New Jersey accent.
Oh my God.
For weeks. And this was the first time I was talking to someone outside of my family. And I was so scared that I'd accidentally have a New Jersey like accent on the phone. And it was like, wait a second. Sometimes we need to take breaks from our reality TV experience because all of a sudden I'm like Pauly D. And I'm like, I did fine on the interview, but I did have to like talk normally for a New Jersey accent is very normal for people that live in New Jersey.
Normal for you. Yeah.
I did not. I've never been to New Jersey. I've been in Ontario my whole life. So I had to like talk like myself all day just to like figure it out, and I was just so ungrounded in that like voice because I got so used to it. So that sometimes we can get a little too deep into it. I think I find that in the moments of like, oh my God, am I stressed? Or like, I find it sometimes in my dreams actually. If I watch too much Below Deck, suddenly I'm like a stewardess running around making drinks and everyone's being mean to me. Like I think I see it in other ways, kind of floating into my life through like dreams, or like my mentality of how I would handle an argument. Like that I would like say the like, you know, off the cuff, amazing like attack. And I'm like, no way, I would never do that.
It just kind of, it reminded me too, like, I guess, you know, even on the topic of mental health, right? Like, I think that there is such, I guess, a normalization of overconsumption.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So even in a lot of these shows, I think about like Vanderpump, I think about Jersey Shore, a lot of them though, right? All the Bachelorette and Bachelor spin-offs, right? The Bachelor in Paradise specifically. But I think that there's kind of a culture of, you know, overconsumption of alcohol too, right? And I know a lot of people have like kind of talked about this post-show, right? Where they'll say, you know, in that scene, I was, you know, very, very intoxicated, right? So I think that's also another important thing to recognize.
Yeah.
Is the culture of it all, right? And
100%. 100%. Like, especially with the arguments on these shows.
Yeah.
I think since we don't witness the like, you know, because getting drunk in that way when they're like kind of like sipping wine or like a vodka soda at the table, like that would take hours. We immediately go to the fight, and they're screaming at each other and saying things that they would never say, and it's like they were likely heavily intoxicated, and that's when the best content comes about from the eyes of a producer, but that we can't see it as like a realistic way that people talk to each other, because that's how they were talking to each other in a particular environment where they were heavily intoxicated. And I kind of reflect like, those are not the moments that these people are like proud of. They're not the moments that they remember incredibly well. They're not the moments where they handled conflict in the way that they wanted to. And so I think that's important to remember, like that separation of this is A, not real life, but B, not exhibiting ideal behaviors. And that we're trying to highlight behaviors that cause conflict and drama and content. And that we really want to separate that should not be a priority, I would say, in our daily lives. So I think when it comes to like that overconsumption, or even what we could call like an addiction or an obsession with reality TV, is are you able to separate and create these kind of two boxes of what I watch on TV, why I enjoy it, why it creates that like relaxation or escapism kind of feeling, but then how that behavior needs to stay in that box. Needs to not apply to how I handle conflict with my friends. I don't want to jump on top of the table. I don't want to throw a wine glass at someone. I want to say like, hey, like, well, what we were just talking about kind of hurt my feelings. Like, are you able to kind of talk about it with me? Right? So I think that's a big thing. Conflict in particular, because it's so normal on those shows to have conflict. Like Jersey Shore especially, like the best episodes, unfortunately, are the bar fights. But I do not want to be there. I do not want to experience it. I do not want my own friends to talk to me that way. Right? So it's interesting, but I would say the addiction is the lack of separation.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think that can be said for, I would say a lot of shows. I think, I think with this though, right, I want to say we feel, right, or at least personally, we feel more connected to it because it's kind of like real people and these are their lives, right? So we know that it's not an actor playing a different person, or there's a storyline, right? But I think that can be challenging, right? And then, say we go on Instagram after and then we see that person and we connect with them through other ways and other social media platforms, right? So it can be hard. It's not always, it's not always just the show, right? We can connect with reality TV in other ways as well, which I think is important to just be mindful of, right? And and I think when we're doing that, just I think paying attention to what's coming up for us, right? And like you kind of said at the beginning, right? Like if you have moments where you're feeling a particular way or you're feeling anxiety, right? Because there is a ton of conflict on a lot of these shows, right? I think just being in tune with what is coming up for you. Right?
I think that's a really good one too. And like that separation for me is created further of like, we would not want our worst moments to be filmed. Like I think there's a great benefit in therapy when we're able to speak to like, I made this huge mistake. I didn't like how I acted. I didn't like how I said that. And that we can work on resolve and accountability and safety within that it wasn't filmed. Maybe someone saw it. Maybe it became a conflict in your personal relationships, but that we can work through it in personal behavior as opposed to this like high level of accountability or like cancel culture that we then apply to people that did bad things, like bad behavior while being filmed and produced and put on shows, right? Like death threats on social media because of cheating. We're not saying that cheating is okay. We're not saying that it was acceptable behavior, that it was normal behavior. Well, even within monogamous relationships, sometimes there is like different rules and different things that people want to adhere to. But that by creating that high standard within those like parasocial relationships, we're not allowing people to face mistakes in the same way that we're able to do in our own reality, if that makes sense. I kind of went off on a thing there, but
I love the thing.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No, I think that that's true because you are catching people in such a vulnerable place. There's camera, so there's other people witnessing and watching. And it kind of, okay, now I'm going on a thing. It reminds me of The Office. The Office, because there's supposed to be a documentary, right? And even as we get to the last season of The Office, the last half of the last season of The Office, the documentary crew ends up
being in it
because the boom operator tries to protect Pam. But there is that same question sometimes when we're watching is like, why isn't anyone stopping this? Like, especially when things are getting a little bit more dangerous. So I was like, there's camera crew. Why did the camera crew let this person drive drunk? Or why are they allowing this to happen? And it can kind of, again, just, it's not really what we would ourselves experience, right? Maybe there are people in our lives who wouldn't allow us to do that, or we don't have a camera where everyone can see a really vulnerable or a really low point in our lives. And so it's just, I think, Alicia, what you both of you have said is kind of having that separation, being able to kind of focus in on like, I'm watching this on a television. There's that separation of this is my world, this is my couch, this is my house, and that's their mansion and their space, and kind of just having that boundary and distance.
Because we thrive off of and enjoy the lack of boundaries, right? Yes. And so it's something to kind of keep in mind that that's what we enjoy when we watch TV, but that molding that into our own lives is a little bit unfair, I would say, to ourselves. Yeah. Good.
And I think there is that joy in the conflict too. I mean, even when people in our lives are going through difficult moments, there's moments of gossip and checking in with people around us.
And that's an incredibly normal phenomenon, right? Like we talk about the experience of watching a car crash when we drive past it, right? What we'll see is not necessarily something that we want to see, but there's a drive within us to look
and want to know. There's a nosiness that
we are very nosy. And maybe that's what it is. Reality TV kind of meets that point for me, so I have a place to be nosy. And then
you can be that fly on the wall.
Like I get to experience that with TV, so maybe I need it less in my personal life. There you go. Maybe. Yeah. I'm really just trying to justify how much I watch reality TV. I'm not going to lie. Like, I love it. I think it's outstanding. And I think, too, it is helpful in the way that I watch it because I'm not fully there. I'm not fully in it. Like, I can rewatch a season and see something brand new because I was, beating the necklace while I was doing it, right? So,
Again, lots of safety and comfort that comes from watching reality TV. We can go into a whole thing of like social media and with like
it's a whole with reality TV.
Like even just like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which was the only one that I consistently watched. I haven't in a few years, but there's just so much there.
Yeah, the Kardashians, that was a huge thing as well, right? And I think, like, even just thinking and reflecting on that, right? Like, the idea that, like, you're kind of letting a camera crew into your own home, right? And, and the vulnerability that also comes with that, right? I think, it is, it's quite a thing or a notion to be that was normalized, right? But I think, on the other hand, right, it's also okay that we kind of enjoy that side of things, right? When it's when we feel like we can, watch it and be immersed in it, I think in like safe and comfortable ways, I think it's totally okay.
And absolutely. There's some comfort in like knowing that maybe someone's going through something that you've gone through, and so like there is some of those benefits too,
relatable,
like feeling connected. Well, we could keep chatting for hours about
I could literally chat for hours about this.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your experience of reality TV.
Of course.
And
I'm not gonna stop.
And you don't have to stop. It's good. All right, thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.